Life is a quest for logic and reason. It is a quest to find balance between science and faith. Life is a quest for knowledge and understanding. But most importantly, it's a quest for personal discovery. Whatever your quest, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Welcome to Quest. Hi, Nicole. Welcome to the Quest podcast.
Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You sounded so thrilled there.
I had to pinch myself that this is actually happening.
This is actually happening.
Yes.
You know, it's coming up on about a year since we met. We met on Instagram, and I have to say, I think the fans, the listeners of my podcast know I'm friendly to skating. Paulina Edmonds, our friend Paulina, has been on 2 times on my podcast. She's always had very popular episodes. And even, in the 90s, like I was a fan of figure skating. It was like at the end of the 90s, it was like the biggest thing on the planet. And you were there. And of course, I think what's funny is like figure skating was, already kind of popular, but I think Tanya Nancy really blew it up, and you were there at that time frame. So I think this is going to be a fun, different kind of interview because like Paulina was so recent, and this is like finally like a veteran from the heyday of this sport. So I want to just kind of kick this off with just tell the listeners like what that was like. I mean, this was like one of the biggest spectacles on the planet. What was it like to live in that era when there were 58 cities a year for touring shows or performances, and it was the thing everyone watched at the Olympics? Like, walk me through that experience.
That whole experience was quite an experience. I think, when I skated, it was such a crazy time. We had the whole Tanya Nancy thing, and that whole buildup and that whole story, put skating so much on the map. I mean, people knew figure skating. You had your regular fans and stuff, but when that happened, it just turned the sport completely upside down. And all of a sudden, it was the most watched event. And all these tours came in, endorsements came in, companies came in. I mean, everybody knew about skating. And it was great for us as athletes because we made great money. We did an insane amount of tours. And I think it really stayed up there for quite a while. It's gone down a little bit, but I really was at the right time.
To see like some of the shows currently, there's people in the audience, but like you had like 10,000 people in the audience. Like you had like major sporting event kind of numbers for figure skating. Mm-hmm. What was it like skating in huge arenas like that in front of all those people? Is it nervous?
No, but for me, it wasn't. I mean, a lot of people were. I mean, you knew they were there, but you kind of changed channels in your mind of those people are there to see you. I think your fear with that is the only thing is that you want to do so well. And it's, 4 minutes of you can Zamboni the ice and fall everywhere, or you can skate absolutely amazing. You never know. And it's very upsetting when you do not do well, because those people came to see you and you want to skate great for them. So,
yeah. This may sound like a silly question, but I'm going to ask it because I've always wanted to know, like when we watch it on the Olympics, it's a well-lit arena. But when I go to like something like Champions on Ice, Stars on Ice shows, there's like a spotlight you're skating in. How different is it to skate in like the dark arena versus like the lit up arena?
I absolutely hated spotlights. Yeah, they really bothered me a lot. For jumping, it can be very dangerous. For instance, it depended on the arena. If it was a really huge arena, the lights were very high and very far away, which were not bad. But you would get into a smaller arena, they were eye level. And going into a jump, it's like you're jumping basically. So, and not to mention when you have those spotlights on, you don't even see the audience. It's pitch black around. They're there. You hear them, but you don't see them.
Is that good or bad? Does
I like to see them.
Mm.
I think everybody's a little bit different. Definitely, because you're like smiling, and when you see that person that you're smiling to, instead of blackness, it's like, oh wait, are they
Yeah,
reacting? How are they smiling back? Are they frowning? Or what is it exactly? So I think that's the big part of when I skated. I love to interact with the audience
yeah,
and just kind of get to them to feel what I was feeling out there.
for sure. You're at 1995 nationals champion, one of the best skaters in the world, certainly a U.S. national champion. Um, you're really well known for your attention to music and costuming. Talk to me about that. Why was that so important to you in the day? Because to me, it doesn't seem that important anymore to skaters, but like for you, that was a huge part. Music's your life. You told me that once. So just tell the listeners a little bit about your method behind assuming these characters, if that's the proper thing to say.
Yes. Well, for me, it was always kind of storytelling out there. And it depended, of course, on the music. I always tried to pick music that the younger generation, the older generation, both knew, popular songs, to bring them in, or something, a theme from a movie that everybody knows the movie, of course. The minute you hear it, you're like, it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then becoming that character, having the costume incorporated with the program, to me is so important. It brings such a theatrical kind of art to the sport, because it is a sport. We all out there, we're jumping, we're spinning, we're bending in positions that we shouldn't be bending in, and we're falling on our tushies 98% of the time. So
Yeah.
it's how can you make it that it's still not only sporty but incredibly entertaining and beautiful. So for me, that was like the number one priority, to have that complete package. And it was always a package of clean skates, clean laces, clean tights, the costume matching, the hair, the nails, the makeup, the earrings, everything. It was you don't half cook a meal. You know what I mean? You have to finish cooking it.
Tell me, I don't know if I'm correct on this or not. At that time when you were skating, you couldn't have songs with lyrics in it. Does
Right.
the Olympics allow that now, or competitions? Is it still just music only, or can you have a regular song?
So now it's completely changed since I've been out for so long, and you can use vocal. For me, it's disturbing for me, because it also takes away the fact that then when we did do an exhibition or a show, that we were able to use music with lyrics. That was so exciting for us. And now
that was my
it's
next question, actually, was how that was different.
yeah, because you couldn't wait to skate to the latest song that you hear on the radio that gets you going and pumped up. And then so if you can do it in competition, that loses the fun of the excitement of doing it in a show.
Mm-hmm.
Skating to something that you kind of like were not allowed to skate to,
Yeah.
that you could do in a show. So it lost that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. Let's talk about Tanya Nancy scandal for a second. First off, I, Tanya, is that a realistic movie? Is it even? Did you even watch it?
I did watch it, just so I could educate myself, for people like you to ask me that question. Give you an answer. Half and half. I think it's very hard to really do kind of skating movies, because there's so much to us. We have so many different characters, so many different things we go through. Then you worry about the politics of skating, of not wanting to throw people under the bus, or make the USFSA upset, or the ISU, and all these kind of things. So, and also you don't always want to promote that. In any sport, there's bad stuff that goes on, and there's rumors, and there's hate, and there's all this kind of stuff. And in skating is just as much. So the fact that that incident was so public, and so, those things just do not happen. You know what I mean? So that's why it really was like, people were like hit by a freight truck when it happened. Like, what, is going on here? In the movie, I feel like, the base of it was there. There was some skating stuff that is not real skating stuff. It's critical. I mean, it wasn't the cutting edge movie, but
Mhm.
the base of the story was fact.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hey, you knew Nancy and Tanya were a little bit older than you, I think, at that time. Is that right? So
Yes.
you kind of knew them. You weren't like really super good friends with them, but you were around them and kind of knew them as acquaintances. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
you can say that. I mean, we all know each other because we do so many competitions together. It's not like, hey, let's go get burgers after and hang out and, you know, that
Right.
kind of thing. It's really not like that.
Do we just recently, the ban on Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame was rescinded.
Mhm.
Was Tanya's punishment too stiff to have a lifetime ban from a sport? Literally the only thing she ever knew.
I've thought about that before, and uh, I don't think she should have been banned. I mean, I don't think she maybe shouldn't have been allowed to compete anymore, or those kind of things. But this is I mean, it's a very 50-50 kind of like how to even answer that because, 50% are going to say, well, that's not right. That's horrible. And you're condoning that kind of behavior. And the other 50 are going to say, look, we need to be forgiven and kind of move forward with our lives. And let's give this girl another chance to redeem herself
Yeah.
and rebuild herself after what happened. I mean, I don't feel that, Tanya will always have this carried on her back for the
Hmm.
rest of her life. Isn't that enough?
Yeah. What's interesting to me about it was, she's like 3 degrees away from the actual physical crime,
Yeah.
which is interesting. Like, if you assault someone, you maybe prison time's on the card. Maybe that's what's going to happen to you is you're going to spend 2 years in jail if you hurt someone. But this is like the boyfriend 1 degree away, guy a boyfriend hires 2 degrees away. And
Mhm,
even if Tanya was aware of it, it just to me it always just seemed incredibly stiff of a penalty
mhm.
to have a banning for life like
Yeah,
that. Like it
yeah,
almost seems like maybe you could kind of like I think really mess with a skater's career by just giving them a 3 or 4 or 5 year ban from competing because then you age
yeah,
out of the business and then it's like well you pretty much just kicked them out of being able to ever compete because in 5 years a lot of skaters have aged out of being able to do it anyways
right,
but at least it would have allowed her to teach and do camps and stuff like that like you could have kept her out of the world scene. To
right.
me there were other things that would have been fair.
Mhm. Yeah.
um but that's this is a weird transition and segue but like not the only scandal in the skating world, Nicole.
Oh, no, not at all.
and and I think anyone who knows the skating world or maybe has looked you up on the Google search engines knows that you also had a very public fall.
Yes.
And we're not going to dig into this too much in this interview because just this week you had a big announcement. Do you want to tell everyone what that announcement was?
Um, I don't know. Do I?
So we've known each other for a while, and I approached you with the idea of publishing your biography, and it took you a while to come around to the idea of it, and it took a lot of work. We had a lot of people involved to get you to want to tell that story, and you told a beautiful story. We've announced this week that that's coming out on October 8th. So I wanted to, have you fresh
Well,
on the podcast.
I guess I haven't, physically said it out loud. I needed your help there. Yes, the book is coming out, and uh, it's going to be kind of life changing. It's also been a
Yes.
very healing process. It's doing a biography is incredibly difficult of opening old haunted houses
Yeah.
that you don't want to visit anymore,
Sure.
and being able to close that door and move on. So this book is I think something very special because it's not just there is of course Nicole the skater, but there's so many extended outlets of not only my character but things that have happened in my life
Yeah.
that will be really exciting for people to read and
For sure.
put me, I believe, into a different category of how they preserved me, basically.
Exactly. I had the pleasure of writing that book with a co-writer, a brilliant young writer named Caden Ferrigno. And Nicole, hang on just one second. I'm getting something from the control room here that we have a special guest. I'm going to bring her on here.
Hi.
It's so good to see you.
So for the listeners who aren't watching this, this is Caden has just joined us, the co-writer on the book. So
Hi,
I thought
everyone.
we kind of have a joint conversation here.
Reunion. This is crazy.
Good.
We used to do these in the morning, once a week.
Yeah.
Twice a week, honestly.
Twice a week. Yes, yes. So yeah, Todd and Caden did this work with me, and I struggled sometimes, and they were patient and kind and understanding, and between random texts consistently and photos and a few tears, but we got through.
I'm actually going to probably ask you both questions at this point. You know, Caden, when you came on to begin to work with me, and I brought you on as a writer, you know, I had no idea if you were even into skating or anything like that. And certainly, you know, Nicole's years, a little before you were born, you're a very young writer, you're 22 years old. Like, you saw more of like Paulina's era than the kind of the classic original era. But why don't you tell the listeners kind of like what it felt like from week to week as this story escalated, how it felt as an investigative journalist to be hearing this story. And she would, I would just kind of paraphrase this, like, she would warn us, oh, you haven't heard anything yet, wait till next week. And I was like, oh, come on, how much worse could it be? Remember, we would tell everyone about kind of our conversations afterward, how we felt hearing her stories and what this experience was like for you.
Well, I mean, you know, as you said, it definitely, I want to say it was before my time, but I feel that honestly, I probably watched more skating from that time than I have, you know, of more recent years. So I was aware of who Nicole was. Oddly enough, I had not heard about any of it, like any of the scandal. I knew about your skating, and that's it. And so I was very excited to be brought onto this project, and you kind of gave a bit of a caveat of what that would be. And, you know, I met with Nicole, and she definitely gave the warning of this is going to be intense. So I think your words were like, are you ready for the trauma? Like, are you in for the trauma? That was like my interview question. And so I expected there to be some crazy stuff going on. And I mean, as you said, every week it was crazier than the next. And I don't want to say I was too surprised or shocked, just because, you know, I really think the world's crazy or some crazy stuff. And I think that I was, you know, through a lot of it, it was difficult to keep my own feelings out of it, which is a weird thing to say as a journalist. But I think, so many strong feelings and opinions about the story, hearing it from you. And so, you know, even writing that out has been difficult for me to maintain, you know, your voice rather than be like speaking through someone who's like, like it wasn't her fault. So that's been a big thing. But anyways, sorry, this is not my interview, but it was really an honor to hear your story like that. And I know how difficult that must have been. And just, you know, every week, sometimes twice a week, it was just you could tell that you really showed up with, and, you know, you brought all of this and put it down on the table, and it meant the absolute world for us to be able to hear it from that, like in that way firsthand. So cannot thank you enough for doing that.
No, thank you for both of you being so patient with me also. I think it's really hard when you tap into somebody, especially into their past and things that nobody else knew, or, you know, like even my mom, I had to come clean to my mom at 47 about things, and which I said I would take to my grave, but I, you know, felt it was necessary to tell some of those stories for people to really understand my behavior, or maybe even just why I skate the way that I do. So it's like, here's your greatest definition.
Yeah. What did those mornings feel like for you, Nicole? I mean, we had about 25 hours of interview recorded, and certainly the more comfortable you got with us, it was important because we got into really heavy stuff toward the end. But what were those mornings like for you? How did you prepare for them? What was it like? How did you feel afterward, after kind of venting things you had never told anyone before?
Well, let's see. For the preparation, I usually would go. We went pretty much from birth to now, so I knew like what era. And luckily, my mom has all of these incredible scrapbooks that she's done for years. I think all the way to '98. So those things were like the gold tickets of bringing the flood back of memories, and also talking with her about things maybe I'd forgotten about. And so those were really important. I would usually go to her house the day before and we talk about it and scan through it and uh, just kind of mentally prepare that time. And then, sometimes later a memory would come back and I'd backtrack with you guys on the things. And dates were always really difficult and fuzzy because they were so long ago. And I think I just closed that chapter in my life, almost like put that wall up. And so breaking it down was hard. When I knew it was going to be a really tough discussion the next day, I really had to prepare myself, because I knew it was going to be uncomfortable, and I had to meditate. I worked with a very good alignment coach, Jamie, who I would talk to also pre talking to you guys, of where I am. So she was, in spirit holding my hand here of how to approach the things and not be afraid. And if something was uncomfortable, just say, I'm done for today, or I can't do anymore, or, I need a few days off. And, but I never felt that the discussions were hard, but I never felt I needed to tell you guys, let's take a week off. I need a week off. Because I felt like if I would stop and dwell on those things still, I would just start not getting out of that hole. So I felt like, no, let's keep trucking.
I often say this, that for those people that have heard of the Tanya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan scandal or seen I, Tanya, I've been saying this for several months now, that your book makes that story look like a Disney film.
Well,
It's not just some some legal things that happened,
right.
but
Well, my
during
legal things were my problems and my issues. They were nothing to do with the sport.
right.
So,
For sure.
that's what is very different. And it's been, I don't want to say it, you just have to read about what happens.
Yeah. And and also, obviously you're right, the legal problems had anything to do with figure skating, but some of it happened during figure skating. And then there was a significant amount that happened after you sort of were no longer competing and you kind of got involved. You kind of had a party lifestyle for a while. You were in the New York scene and you went to the clubs, and things escalate and troubles happen. And it's that second act of the life is where things really take a serious turn. But what I think the readers are going to find really fascinating is there's sort of this athletic triumph that happens in the first act, kind of you becoming this great skater, and the second act, like any good movie, just goes to crap. And then there's a sort of a redemption and getting back into the world. And just when you think you haven't, you've seen it all, you run off and join the circus.
Yeah.
Literally.
I did.
It's just every page is something exciting. Is that fair to say, Caden?
I would say so, absolutely. I mean, like you said, she ran away, joined the circus. She also skipped the country. Like, she fully moved to Europe. It was crazy. So it really is the kind of situation that I would say page, every chapter for sure has a different kind of crazy section of the story that in itself has a rise and a fall. And I think that's a really interesting component.
Well, I loved working with you guys, but I've said this from day one, is that I do feel so empowered that I've been able to do this book, that I have a child. You know, that's because I think you have your life just so drastically changes when you have a child, and your perspective of things, and things I used to look at and kind of not understand or judge. Now I get it because I have a child. And to me, that's the most powerful thing also, that it's not like, well, she's just a hired bratty skater who didn't make it. Now she's making a book. To no, there's so much more than that. So
Yeah.
now it's
Yeah.
like, no, wait, actually she's lived a few lives.
Absolutely. That's an understatement there. Nicole, are you at all worried about when this is out in the world in October, what people are going to think?
Yes, of course. I think people, especially now these days, are very quick to make their accusation of how they want to perceive it. And this book is really about for people to see that, you know, you can pull yourself out of really dark places. It's not easy. And sometimes you pull up and then you fall back down again. And that, you know, just to keep going with so many things. I think all different kinds of people are going to have different things to say about it. But in the end, it's my story.
Yeah.
So, you know, I kind of, you know, you might find me tucked away in Alaska in a cabin or hiding in that bucket or something.
You've definitely persevered. What's the line in the book, Caden, where she says she wants this to be a manual for people to be able to survive? I can't remember exactly the line that was in it, but it was something like that.
Yeah. And it's, you know, I think also what has really struck me about this is your insistence, which is very admirable, on, you know, I made these decisions, you know, I'm not the victim. And, you know, from as an outsider, that can be hard when, you know, you're seeing it through different eyes. So I've always found that to be very powerful. And, you know, in that line, I also don't remember, I could pull it up, but I don't remember the exact way that it was phrased, but it was this really, I mean, you actually just kind of said it, like, you know, even if you fall, you come back up, and if you fall again, that can feel so incredibly discouraging. And like, you know, it was so difficult already to get myself to this point, and, you know, I've just tumbled back down. And so I think that's one of the most powerful things. And I think that throughout all of the aspects, or all of these stories in the book, there really is this kind of, you know, turbulent but very encouraging, without trying to be encouraging, kind of sense and comfort that I can see. You know, I've said it from the beginning. I think that this book is going to span like far beyond just the world of figure skating. I think that, or even sports in general, I think that everyone will be able to like read this book and take something from it, take a lot from it, and really feel that they're not, as corny as it sounds, alone in what they're dealing with, and that it is possible to come back. And it is also very human to, you know, it's not going to be one road to recovery. It's going to be this up and down of all of these different things that happen in your life, all very distinctly their own. And that's totally normal, you know.
And, you know, that it's really important to me that it's not just skating fans that will read the book, that it will be regular people as well. And I feel that, you know, all my mistakes I've made in my life, which I've made plenty of them, I've owned up to. And I think it's important for people to realize that, you know, you do have to own up to your mistakes. And I still make mistakes, but I wear them. They're mine. Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to kind of wrapping up this episode, but I do have a couple more questions for both of you. This book comes out on October 8th. It's available all over the world. It'll be in hardcover, softcover, other versions to come down the line, but it will be the skating book of the new skating season, which is exciting because, you know, it is coming out for the holiday season. And then we have an Olympics right around the corner. And well, we have a Nationals and an Olympics right around the corner. And I want to ask you real quick, hopefully that book's in everyone's hands at those events. That would be great. But I want to ask you, like, what's it like in the lead up to the Olympics? Like, we're looking at, you know, 7 months away. You've been in the Olympics before. How are these young skaters, how are they feeling right now? Are they preparing for it? Are they nervous about it? Like, what do you recall about 7 months away from the Olympics?
Well, Todd, I really hope they are preparing for it.
It's this. It's the
anxiety.
summer off. I don't know what they're doing.
Right. Um, it's starting a whole mental prep already of it's Olympics, that's
It's the world
the
stage.
that's the end of the line, that's your last big one, so it's there's pressure, there's about if you're gonna change things in the program, just work on perfecting everything, and staying focused. I mean, everybody, once they find their niche, whatever works for them, then they stick with it. And some are more relaxed about it, and others are more intense about it. So it gets very serious. It starts to get pretty serious, and it's pretty much the only thing you think about.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Kate, I want to bring this up because there's a little tie-in here. So this is your first book, right?
Yes, it is my first book.
You're working on another book right now for a legendary choreographer, Dave Scott. And I believe you're still interviewing him now and about to start writing that book. There's a tie-in here. Do you want to tell everyone the tie-in between figure skating and the world of hip hop?
Gosh, well, I don't know if we're naming names here, but he coached or choreographed, not coached, sorry, it's not a skater. He choreographed one of Tara
Lipinski's Hip Hop on Ice.
Yeah, and it was incredible because I actually, I didn't know that, and I'm pretty sure it was the same day because we do Thursdays, and we had done a Thursday morning, and it was later that same day, and it was crazy because we had just been talking about your experience with her at the Olympics, and we were going through his credits, and it came up, and I was like, whoa, I know that name. I think I've heard that name earlier today. And it was this kind of weird, unplanned, kind of serendipitous, if that's the correct use of the word, moment. And so that was really, really wild. So yeah, I guess also the role of choreography, is so important to you. I believe I read this. I'm not sure if we've talked about this before, but you choreographed like a few of your own programs, most of them, correct? Yeah,
all of them.
Yeah.
I did have some choreographers when I was doing the competition programs and stuff. But as far as any kind of show program, that was all me.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard. We kind of have something called like the skeleton of the program, where it's your layout of where you're putting the jumps, and there's only so many ways you can go into a jump and coming out of a jump. So once you lay it out on kind of a paper, and you cover the ice in the right areas and where the judges are sitting and where you want them to see certain things better than others, a little trick of the trade. But now it's a little different because they have all these cameras and all this crazy stuff. Before, you could like my Lutz, which was a flutz, I would do a certain pattern away, so they really couldn't see if I changed the edge or not. Scandalous.
Nicole, I imagine you're still following figure skating to some extent. Who excites you today? Who do you like? Who are you rooting for?
Oh gosh.
You recently did some commentary with Paulina on a live.
And that's a hard thing because I don't want to put any favoritism on any skate. You know what I mean? They all, for me, it's very difficult because they all hold something special that's their own, whether it can be Alyssa Liu's, just nonchalant way of skating, or any of the girls, Amber, still rocking that triple axel out there. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just, Brandy's coming up. There's a whole bunch of them. There's all these new ones coming up, and it's just crazy. I mean, it's amazing. And then you have your European girls who are just, one more beautiful than the other.
There hasn't been. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. There hasn't been a U.S. Olympian be gold since Sasha Cohen. Is that right? Was she? Was she gold?
No.
It's been a long time. It's a 20-year drought.
I don't.
Yeah, we need to look this up. We need to get our investigative journalist, Caden, to look this up for us. But I do know the U.S. has had a serious drought in medals in the Olympics.
Yeah.
But as we wrap up here, this is kind of like a comeback year for you. You're coaching people again. You're back in the rink. You're getting in shape. You've got a couple little performances under your belt. You're re-emerging, and it's exciting. And I'm hearing rumors that there's big stuff planned coming up after this book release. You have a website, NicoleBobek.com, people can go to, and it tells all about the stuff you're doing. You're doing Zoom sessions with people that, satellite coaching, and you also have people in the rink. You live in Florida and you work out of a rink there. How exciting is this for you? Is this fun to reemerge like this?
It is fun to reemerge, and I love the people who have come into my life from this emerging. I've met an incredible amount of great people who still love classic figure skating and remember me. And then there are some new ones too. And I have a lot of fun working with adult skaters, actually. It's a little bit more relaxed. It's not so intense like we're going to Olympics, And that's my thing. I mean, I love to coach. I don't have dreams of making an Olympic champion or these kind of things. I do love to do choreography, but I'm just enjoying, what I have right now. And I have my Instagram page, which is a little bit more free of the fun Nicole,
Yeah. Tell everyone how they can find that. Where are you at on social media?
Nicole Bobek 77 on Instagram. And I put a lot of kind of just what I'm going through in the day. It can be, certain music, and it goes everywhere. I'm either country, punk, or rock, or I'm a little bit everything. So I definitely post about my son because he's my pride and joy, and just fun stuff. I post my body because I know it needs work, but I'm also very proud of things I've been through in my life and how I've survived. So I think when you're proud about those things, it's okay. So.
Yeah. Well, Nicole, thanks for coming out today. I couldn't be more proud to be publishing this book for you. And, I had an amazing experience writing this book, co-writing this with Caden. It really was a real joy to work with you, Caden, on this project. And I couldn't have a better writing partner for it. And I know every author says this, but it's one of the best things I've ever put out. I think people are really going to enjoy the story, and I think that's the truth. So, do you feel the same?
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, I absolutely do.
Well, Nicole, come back another time. When this book's out in the world and we see how it's received, you can come back on and you can either curse me out or we can be celebrating. So.
Exactly. I think it might be a little bit of both.
Probably both.
Yeah. All right, guys, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll all talk soon.
All righty. Bye. Bye, guys.
Metacortex Publishing hopes that you've enjoyed this presentation.
Please take a moment to listen to some other podcast offerings from Metacortex Publishing.
The Danceology podcast interviews the great masters of dance, the working professionals starring in today's most exciting shows, and the rising stars ready to amp up the craft. I'm your host, Edyta Stawenska from Dancing with the Stars. Join me as I dive into the world of dance, uncovering unique stories and the fascinating personalities of industry professionals on Danceology.
Hi, I'm Father Daniel Duplantis, a Catholic priest, martial artist, and host of the Karate Priest podcast. Have you ever wondered what the church teaches about different topics? Are you a martial arts enthusiast or just someone who wants to learn more about martial arts? I'd like to invite you to join me and many guests on my podcast as we cover topics of faith, everyday living, and martial arts on the Karate Priest podcast.
The No Earthly Explanation podcast investigates the things that are unexplainable, hosted by world-renowned investigative researcher Donald R. Schmidt and scientist Ellie Ringo. Follow them as they look for evidence for things that have no earthly explanation. Available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Every year, tennis players from around the world compete for excellence, triumphing against all odds to emerge the champions. I'm your host, Maddie Harrison. Join me as I get up close and personal with these dynamic individuals and find out what it takes to go for greatness. Let's go beyond the match.
Cult Following is a podcast that studies the personalities and common traits of cult leaders and their followers. Get the real story behind these infamous and oftentimes tragic cults from a new perspective, through exhaustive research, and from interviews with people that were there. Available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hi everybody, I'm Amber Rose, the religious hippie, and I host the podcast A Catholic's Perspective. Join me every 2 weeks as I release episodes targeted towards helping young Catholics navigate their ever-changing secular world while staying strong in their faith. Whether you are a Catholic or not, all are welcome here. So if this is something that interests you, feel free to tune in. You can find A Catholic's Perspective on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I hope to see you there. Bye!
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please be sure to rate and review this episode. This podcast is produced by Todd Fischer and Anthony Smith and is distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright. Any previously trademarked or copyright content is used by permission. Information and opinions stated in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Please be sure to visit the official website for Metacortex Publishing at metacortexpublishing.com or find us on social media for other unique content.